For centuries, Native American sacred lands have been targeted by developers for mining, oil drilling, tourism, and urban expansion. Many tribes argue that these sites should be completely off-limits to development, while corporations and government agencies often prioritize economic interests. Should sacred native lands be permanently protected? Or is there a way to balance development with indigenous rights? One of the strongest arguments for protection is religious freedom. Many sacred sites, such as Bears Ears, Chaco Canyon, and Black Hills, are just as important to native spiritual traditions as churches, mosques, or synagogues are to other religions. However, unlike religious buildings, these sites do not have the same legal protections. The U.S. government has repeatedly allowed corporations to mine, drill, or build on sacred native lands, despite tribal opposition. As Lakota leader Chase Iron Eyes states, would Americans allow an oil rig inside a cathedral? That's what's happening to our sacred places. Another reason for protection is environmental impact. Many sacred sites contain pristine forests, rivers, and ecosystems that tribes have protected for generations. Development often leads to deforestation, water contamination, and habitat destruction, threatening not just native traditions, but also wildlife and biodiversity. The proposed uranium mining near the Grand Canyon, which threatens Hopi and Navajo sacred lands, is a prime example of how development can permanently damage fragile environments. However, developers and government officials often argue that sacred lands contain valuable resources that can benefit the economy. Some claim that restricting development could limit job creation and economic growth. Others argue that native communities should share in the profits if their lands are used for resource extraction. However, history has shown that corporations often take the wealth while leaving native communities with environmental destruction and little economic benefit. A possible compromise is tribal-led management of sacred lands. Some native nations have worked with conservation groups and government agencies to create co-managed protection zones. For example, Bears Ears National Monument was initially protected through tribal consultation, though the Trump administration later reduced its size, allowing resource extraction. True, tribal sovereignty over sacred lands would mean native nations have the final say over development, not corporations or federal agencies. So, should sacred native lands be off-limits to developers? Yes, tribes should have full control over their sacred sites, just as other religious and cultural groups do. The real question is, when will the U.S. government treat native religious and environmental rights with the same respect it gives to non-native spaces? What do you think? Let's continue the conversation.